Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Small Talk with Shibby, my LCS post-game interview content. I'm joined by TSM support Chime, and pretty much end to the season, I believe, right? I think you may potentially play one tiebreaker with Dignitas if they end up upsetting or something like that, but pretty much playing all the regular season games, ending up, obviously in playoffs. And I think the question I want to ask you is, I think your roster was very, very underrated, beginning of the split. You guys brought in individuals like Hauntzer, WildTurtle, people from the Academy. At the time, the Academy team, they were brought back up, veterans of TSM. Did you pay any attention to those rankings? Did you guys kind of use that as fuel when making your push? Because I think for a playoff team, your record doesn't indicate how good you guys are, because obviously you had the kind of week with Ruby. Now you've been settled in with Insanity. Like, do you feel you're a better team than most people give you credit for?
I think we were, and I think we definitely are to in some regard. I think yeah, I mean I think esports in general undervalues the players that we have, and that's why everyone rated us. Like I think we were definitely aware of it. And I mean it's a frequent thing I think with teams I've been on in the past that they've been pretty underrated and we've overperformed our like market value to say. And yeah, I think at a certain point in the season, we got a little bit complacent, thinking like I think we thought a little bit too much about, oh, everyone thought we were 10th, now we're 5th. That's a win. Obviously, that was never said, and that's never like the actual mindset. But I think the level of effort we put into scrims reflects that. And now we're reaping the results, which is we're getting like we're just like completely disorganized, and the teams that were progressing kept progressing when we stagnated. So we have a little bit of catching up to do, and maybe it bites us today, where we will fall 7th, 8th instead of 5th, 6th, and have those two lives in playoffs. But yeah, I think there's a chance we also get a tiebreaker versus Dig. So regardless, the fate is still somewhat in our hands as long as 100 Thieves loses. So we just need to, yeah, I mean, we need to earn back our spot in the upper bracket.
Yeah, and for you specifically, right? Obviously, spring probably didn't pan out the way that you wanted to. I mean, for you, did you kind of feel like this is a vindication of your skill a little bit, right? Like making into the playoffs on a roster that was highly underrated. I feel like you as a player, very underrated, even with all the rosters. Like, did you kind of take this split as like all right, yeah, now where like I'm at the level that I think I'm at where I'm properly rated, like last split was a fluke, so on and so forth. Kind of what was your mentality coming in from spring now into summer and being, a playoff team and a real threat because you guys have positive records against some of the top teams?
Yeah, I think we are a good team, and I'm proud of my own performance personally. I think the meta shift was one thing, but I just think overall I've been playing a lot better than I was last split. And I mean, it's hard to rank yourself because obviously I'm biased, but I would consider myself top three. I think who he is standalone the best support right now, and
Wow.
it's like hard to take that away from him. And I think he's earned it, but I do think below those are up for grabs, and the ones who maybe like the All Pro voting went to is a little bit too reflective of the team's like general strength rather than those players individually. Not to say that they're bad, but I think that their own ranking isn't as accurate as it should be. Yeah, I think I've had a pretty solid split, and this last week, I think I had my worst week. And I think some of that has to do with just a disorganized team, but I don't think that's an excuse to play poorly on an individual level. So I can't say, like obviously I'm biased.
Yeah. And I think a lot of criticisms were levied against your team because you were bringing back players like WildTurtle and Hauntzer. Could you shed some light? Because I think a lot of just fans would be like, "Oh, why are you bringing these players back? They didn't really do good in challengers. They're legacy players to some extent, right? Like, what's the point?" Can you shed some light as to kind of the value that Hauntzer and WildTurtle bring both to your team? And I guess for you, what does he bring to the bot lane specifically? Because he's just a tenured veteran.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are like really stable voices. They bring everything you want that a veteran would bring. They bring like stable gameplay, good comms, like confident, collected. They don't like lose their cool on stage, and they're always like giving options. And I think everything that you would hope for out of someone as experienced as those two, they give. And then on top of that, playing with Turtle specifically, I think we pair pretty well together. I think he brings like stability and like matchup knowledge, and I think he's also like really solid and undervalued in terms of his mechanics. And I think for me, I bring like a diverse champ pool, creativity, and I think like I see a lot of angles, and I think we pair well together um, because of that. And I think I think we've had a solid split together so far.
I think some individuals would maybe categorize your team as a team that plays to the other team's level, right? Plays to the opponent's level almost, right? Because of how good of a win rate you have against teams like, Cloud9 and some of the other teams. What do you think makes you guys so effective against these kind of teams? Do you guys just put like you said, put more work in during practice, during prep? Like, are you guys, preparing different strategies? I know your coach is a very vocal individual and he's very, very commanding in regards to like what picks he wants, what he wants to see. What do you believe makes you do so good against the higher seeded teams?
I think we don't. I think the reason that people rate us so poorly is they just think on a like pure skill level we couldn't add up like match up, and I think we across the board overperformed those expectations significantly. So when it comes to sheer mechanics and gameplay, I think we're like a really solid like maybe top three team. But frankly, we lack a lot of important like map rotations, fundamentals, stuff like that that makes us just collapse. And yeah, so I think like on a good day we can compete with anyone. I mean, everyone says that, and I know it's a cliche, and I mean, take that as you will. But I think it's more to do not with our like raw talent, but just with our coordination and um, our like understanding of the level of the game on a basic level. I think like we all see the game a little bit differently, and we haven't fully meshed that into like a workable system.
And obviously this year, I think, split with Coach Reven, and as an individual, is he like completely different from the coaches that you've had before? Is he similar? Like, what does he bring to your team that you maybe have not experienced before on previous rosters that you've been on?
I mean, yeah, I think he's trying to fill the job of like a lot of different coaches. But I think he brings, yeah, I mean, he's always talking about the map and rotations and tempo, and I think he puts a good emphasis on everything equally. I think he's just a well balanced coach, and he also expresses frustration in a healthy way that's like productive, which I know coaches in the past I don't think always have. And I think, yeah, he also brings a little bit of creativity. He knows like we're the underdogs, and he also brings like he wants to get the value. I guess like a lot of times top teams will strip away a player's identity and just try and get like a perfect result. And for us, he's like, if I strip away their identity, we can be like we can lack identity and just fall 10th. And so he's like leaning into our own strengths and trying to like use that in draft and in gameplay. So yeah, I mean, I think he's done a solid job with that so far.
Would you say his vision for the game kind of aligns with yours and the rest of the teams, or was that more of a process where it took a little bit? It took a couple weeks for you to be like, okay, I understand what he's doing, why he wants to do things, or was it kind of like an instant click for you and the
I,
rest of TSM?
I think he sees the game in a traditional way that aligns really well with Hauntzer and Turtle. I think Boogie and I, in particular, would are the more bloody players who we see the game as like there's like this like set idea, and then variations of that can be made depending on if someone plays something, if any opportunity arises. There should always be open to change. And I think that like that level of where we see like a fast play is like not is something that I guess we're trying to like find a middle ground with yeah, the veterans and Revan. And I think we got good at that, and since we also stopped using practice productively, we fell really short on that this week.
I do want to talk about Insanity because obviously he was your substitute mid laner, but now is obviously taken over as the main mid lane role. Not to throw any shade at Ruby necessarily, but playing with Insanity, I think from the outside looking in, he just brings another dynamic to your team, right? He brings interesting picks, different stuff like that. Delving a little bit deeper, playing with him for now the whole split nearly, what else would you say he brings to TSM from the mid lane position, also just as a player individually? Is he very vocal? Is he very intentional on things, how he wants to do things? Is he very like, does he want resources when he can get them? Is he a flexible player? That kind of stuff.
I think he had an identity as a player the first time he came to LCS, and now he's a lot more willing to be anything the team needs to be. He's trying to be like a moldable clay that's like just here, willing to do everything. He has like a huge champ pool. He always wants to do different things, and I think that was really good, and I still think that is really good. But I think we to find an identity as a team, we need to hone in on our strengths. Like frankly, we're not a team who can just play anything at this point. So yeah, I think he brings a lot to the table, and we just need to decide on what we want out of him.
Looking ahead a little bit, obviously into playoffs, I believe a lot of you guys have not really competed at that multiple best of five stage. For you coming into playoffs and prepping for that, what is the mentality going in there, right? Like, what are you guys, you know, prepping for? What are you guys practicing? Are you guys looking to become like a more diverse team? Clearly, based on what you're saying, it seems like you guys want to hone in on like a couple, 1 to 2 or 1 to maybe 3, whatever the number is, play styles that you can kind of flex into here and there. Like, is your focus getting better on the champions you're already practicing, or is it more becoming a more diverse team so you can't get banned out in a maybe a potential 5 game series? Like, what is the focus for you and TSM?
I personally don't think we have issues in draft or like big holes in that sense. I just think we need to be consistent and we need to earn that in scrims and show that we
Mhm.
can also have that longevity because I think people can burn out in best of fives and we've also tended to burn out, I think, in some of our scrims. So we just need to really use honestly, I really just think it's all about how we use our scrims in the next like week. We'll show if we're like a strong enough team to earn worlds.
I do think the connection is cutting out a little bit, so that'll be my final question. Do you have any final message to the TSM fans that may be watching?
Yeah, thank you a lot for supporting us. I know this is like potentially the last run. I don't really know everything about that, but I appreciate all the support that we've had. And for me in particular, it's meant honestly like so much. And I'm sorry for like us like the last week. I think yeah, we can definitely do better. And we will going forward in playoffs.
Thank you so much, TSM Chime.
Thank you.